I think we can kick off. Yeah, let's kick off. We're going to have a little bit of warm-up discussion anyhow. I think we'll probably have a few more people joining, but let's get this party started.
Sounds good. Well, welcome again, everybody. See a lot of familiar names here. See a couple new ones. So welcome everybody. We really appreciate you guys joining us in another session of Crazy Texas Weather. But glad that everybody made the time this morning. So I know we've done a few of these now, and a lot of people who especially have been to several of the sessions are going to hear me sound a little bit familiar on this next part, but just want to remind everybody kind of why we're here. What is Martechify and what is this community that we've built here? So we wanted this forum series to really be something that was anchored in continuous learning, topics that build on each other, and really bringing all these pieces together of what it takes to do Martech. Everybody here is marketers dealing with new challenges in 2021, organizational challenges, and we wanted to bring together some really amazing experts to really talk through these issues. So I guess our full trajectory that we've done so far is talking about campaign architecture, journeys, overcoming data challenges, personalization. We had 2 sessions of content marketing. So if anybody missed those sessions or wants to see them, feel free to reach out. We're happy to send the recordings for those, or also you guys can check them out at martechify.com as well. So I think you guys know me. My name's Kyle Herbst. Vanessa Lay is my counterpart here. We're Martech managers at Ascend Marketing, but we really wanted this to be bigger than Ascend. A community, really bringing everybody together to just explore some really exciting topics here. So we wanted to bring together some phenomenal leaders with great insights to tackle these big issues, people who are dealing with some serious things. And, to take a look back on this last year of COVID, this has been an especially challenging year. And we're really thankful to have these experts here today to walk us through, how they've dealt with it. So I will kick it over to Rich to get us started and introduce our wonderful experts, Holly and Brandy.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Martechify, and if you're new, welcome in the first place. And if you're a repeat visitor, thanks for coming back. And welcome and thank you to our 2 experts for today. We have Holly Moreland, who's Director of Email and Mobile Marketing for Hilton, and Brandy Butler, National Director of Marketing for Jason's Deli. And I think we're in for a treat this morning because these 2 women are leading marketing and MarTech functions in businesses that have really had to do some sharp pivots, had to rethink how they go to market, have had to rethink a whole lot of things. So I think we're in for a treat as we hear their insights and their experiences from bringing their organizations through COVID and then now plotting out the emergence from the pandemic. So welcome and thank you. Both Holly and Brandy will be sharing stories in the middle part of the session, and I know I'm looking forward to hearing what they're about to share. But just to bridge us from the last session to this one, in the last session we talked about content marketing and personalization, and that was actually a part 2 discussion. The session before that, in late 2020, was also content marketing. And content marketing and personalization went deeper in steps. These are, of course, fantastically rich subjects when it comes to marketing and MarTech. Today, our focus is the role of MarTech in post-COVID recovery, and it very much relates to personalization, kind of very precise targeting. These themes actually go together in multiple dimensions. So today's focus is thriving to surviving, the role of MarTech in post-COVID recovery. We'll start with, I'll share a few thoughts up front, just to get maybe our minds warmed up and the conversation warmed up. I'll call it a framing discussion. And then we'll move to the use cases and scenarios shared by our experts. We'll follow with some insights, learnings, and questions, and then a little bit of wrap up at the end. As Kyle mentioned, there will actually be 2 dimensions to our conversation today. So I'll be kind of moderating the audio and video conversation. Vanessa and team will be moderating the chat conversation. And I really want to strongly encourage everybody to get into the chat If you have a question, please post it. We'll be watching and we'll try our best to respond. And then if you have a thought or an insight, feel free to share it. There may be points in the conversation we'll invite members of the audience to kind of speak and share some perspective from their side. So yeah, please jump into the chat and let's get that warmed up. So our theme today is actually, it's COVID, but I call it Martech under pressure. Because not only are the organizations we're talking to here dealing with Martech, but it's Martech in an extreme circumstance. Moving from the beginning of the COVID period, businesses shutting down, revenue streams dropping off, having to reposition, pivot very, very rapidly. That is a lot of change in very, very short order. And in light of that, then we need to think about agility in marketing and precision in the Martech. This is, absolutely the opposite of broad-based communications. This is precision communications, highly localized, precision targeted. As we kind of go into the slides a step deeper here, we'll need to talk about the need for speed and the extreme pace of change that's required in multiple chapters as we've kind of worked through the pandemic. And not only does the organization need to be fast, we need to move with great precision. So, and deal with multiple challenges, multiple dimensions of challenge. So rapid pivots, pivots at business level, pivots in terms of marketing, and extremely complex communications. It's not broad-based campaigns. It is rapid-fire service messaging entering the pandemic. It's highly precise because each location has its own nuances. And then as we move to recovery, it is calls for even more precision in some ways. If we go ahead to slide, many businesses now are planning and starting to move into longer-term sustainment and recovery. But as we think about that, even that challenge has multiple facets to it. And especially if we're talking about restaurants, hospitality, businesses like that, each location is different. Each part of the country is different. For global businesses, each country is dealing with different circumstances. Down to the micro level, each site, each store, each property has its own nuances. So the marketing requires thinking about very precisely where does this message need to happen and what is the message based on locality. For whom, we need to think about segments and audiences, which audiences are still in business, so to speak, through the pandemic, which ones aren't. And as we recover, who's ready to recover, where are the sectors where recovery can happen fastest, and with what offer or what message does one accelerate that recovery? So quite a challenge. On the next slide, there's an organizational dimension to this all. The team, the organization needs to move at a speed that was not that is new for many businesses. You need to respond, recover, pivot much faster, and then they make it even worse. For many businesses, staffs are reduced, resources are thinner, budgets are slashed. So it's like a quintuple challenge, bringing about a recovery very, very fast, very precisely, and then sometimes with one hand tied behind your back. So our experts today are going to share, I think, illuminate what they're dealing with. And I would love to hear, Holly and Brandy, your thoughts. Does this kind of talk track make sense so far? Does it feel real? What would you add to the picture here?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one. A lot of the things you just said in my head, I was just thinking, oh man, that's so true. We having to deal with the restaurant industry over this last year, such a juggling act, particularly when it comes to that local level regulation. While we're all familiar with wear a mask, don't wear a mask, wash your hands, those kinds of things, we were dealing with 254 locations, just about that many health departments, places that we had to work with to figure out what the regulations were, what they were looking for, what we could and couldn't do, and how to communicate that at a local level. So gathering all of that information took quite a lot, and then getting all that information back out and making sure people knew what we were doing to help keep them safe was a monumental task.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what, Brandy said. And the slide that actually spoke to me the most was the one of the pit crew, because that is exactly how I envisioned that our team had to move, because we all of a sudden became this much leaner, little intense pod of a pit crew that had to go in and like Brandy said, deal with, how do we get the data that we need? How do we turn it around, and get it back into the guests' hands or our members' hands, so that we're giving them what they need from us in a time where they can't travel. So that was the one that was like, oh yeah, that was us. Aside from the guy getting run over, who I forgot about, but
All right. Well, thank you. Well, let's kind of move ahead into some. Let's hear some real life. And I think Holly, are you leading us off here?
I
Just to reintroduce Holly, she's the director of customer engagement platforms and Martech at Hilton, and which means she has a whole globe of of properties to care for. And Holly, feel free to expand on your background if you like. And we'd love to kind of hear your experience of coming through all of
Sure. Yeah, and that role has morphed a little bit into, so now my official title is email and mobile marketing director. So if you think about all of the enterprise level communications that go out either via email or push notification, in-app interstitial, that's all on my team. And we do so at the global level. So during all of this, we have over 6,000 properties globally. So we're dealing, much like Brandy alluded to, the different regulations locally, which for food, I'm sure were also extremely detailed and critical. So for hospitality, we had also a lot of macro things going on. And actually, this is a really good lead into my first slide, which if you look at this map, which I will say is not current, but it probably is still pretty reflective of what's going on right now. A lot of borders that are just closed. So people literally cannot travel, even if they wanted to. So either borders completely closed, different regulations around maybe if they're not totally closed, they're a little bit on lockdown, or people are on lockdown, differing quarantining regulations, and then you may have just plain old fear of travel. So even if people could travel, there are still a lot of folks that are really hesitant to get onto a crowded plane, go to a hotel where maybe social distancing will be difficult, or just have this uneasiness about, if I'm in Texas and I want to travel to Mexico, and this is a real life thing that I heard recently, was people thinking about going to Mexico, but Mexico's got this, you've got to have a negative PCR to get back into the States. So what if they wound up quarantining there? So there's a lot there, that led to travel and hospitality being one of the hardest hit industries for sure. So specific to Hilton, we obviously had these extraordinary levels of disruption. Our industry experienced a demand decline that we have never seen before in 101 years of business. So through all of the other things that have happened, we still have never seen the percentage declines that we experienced over COVID. But we remain guided by our founding principle to make the world a better place through light and warmth of hospitality. So what does that mean if people aren't traveling? Well, we look to our people first. So team members safe, especially our folks that are on property. And then the travelers, because we did still have people that needed access to hotels, our first responders, a lot of medical responders as well. So we had to pivot very quickly operationally around how do we ensure we're providing the this the highest level of sanitation to make sure people have that comfort when they're traveling with us, and then also do so, to Brandy's point, are we following all of the regulations that come along with that and that may be new and in place? So I saw probably the biggest or the fastest operational pivot I've ever seen our company do of putting something in place, which was the Hilton Clean Stay program with Lysol. And then we also, we already had our app, which was really, really beneficial in this instance because, and if you think about technology really coming, like swooping in to help us in this instance, we've had digital key for a while. We've had, pick your room, you can check in, you can check out, choose your room, you use your phone as a key. You can completely bypass the front desk experience, which used to be seen as just a convenience, and now became something that was really critical in helping people feel comfortable with coming onto our properties. Because even now, and certainly 6-9 months ago, there was a lot of hesitation around, I don't really want to have to see people or come in contact with people. And so our app definitely helped us with that. But overall, we took steps to protect our business by right sizing structure, continue to drive net unit growth even in 2020. So fourth quarter openings were up 30%, which was mainly driven by China, but is pretty phenomenal. And as a result of these moves, we do expect to recover a stronger business and better positioned to deliver on our customer promise. So we remain optimistic that the accelerating vaccine distribution is going to lead to some easing of these travel restrictions. And there's also this pent-up travel demand. I heard a term, revenge travel recently, which I think is so great and really appropriate because I know I want to do some revenge traveling for sure. We have a lot of people that have been home. They have extra savings built up because they haven't been spending money on travel and entertainment like they maybe previously did. So we do expect, that leisure travel to initially drive our recovery. And then in the back half of the year, we would expect a pretty meaningful rebound in our corporate business and group travel. So in order for us to recover, we kind of look at this triangulation of levers that we have, being people, process, and technology. So the people portion of this, I use the gentle term of we right-sized our structure, but really what that means is we're running leaner, right? So we're going to go into recovery, and as we start to inch towards 2019 levels of travel, we have less people resources to do that work. So that means we really have to look at optimizing our processes, optimizing our tech stack to ensure we're getting efficiencies there, and how can those things support us. So for instance, when we really had to pivot very quickly, especially early on, about a year ago, when everything started shutting down, we had all of these drastic swings globally in those regulations, and we needed to be able to communicate to our guests very, very quickly in 23 different languages. So we had these alerts that go into the reservation confirmation triggers that my team runs. Those go out real time. You make a reservation, we send it out. We have an alert section that suddenly became very, very critical. Usually would say like, oh, this hotel might be under renovation or other things the person might need to know. Now it's got to carry these nuanced, what do they need to know about this travel? Can they even do it? And the same had to happen on the web. And what was happening is that we had two different paths to input that content, and two different teams were having to do it, very manual. It's a thing we wanted to fix forever. But all of a sudden it went from being this nice to have to being this really operationally critical thing that we needed to figure out, like, how do we connect those pipes so that the content can flow in language between these two channels And so it doesn't have to be this big pivot because we know we're going to have to do this again at some point, hopefully not another pandemic, but something else will pop up that we've got to communicate urgently. How do we lean on technology to help us do that better, faster, more efficiently? And then our app is another great example of how we can use technology to help both the guest experience, but also help us operationally. We have these hotels that probably had to lean out their staff, especially as they go into recovery. So they're a little lighter on the team member standpoint. The tools that are in our app where a customer and a guest can self-serve almost takes a little bit of that operational weight off of them. So I'll just close by saying, a lot of times I think Martech helps with these, really shiny things that we like to talk about, but usually it's actually the less sexy initiatives that really can make a difference from an operational and a business standpoint.
Real good. Thank you, Holly. And I'm curious just to hear a little more. So bringing off this process shift and connecting these two, you use the word pipelines. I mean, what did that look like in real life? How did that play, and how did you bring it off?
Yeah, well, the true answer is that we're still trying to get it through. It's because it's one of those things. I think probably a lot of folks on here can relate to this. We having a really matrixed company and a lot of different teams that own different pieces of that puzzle. We have to get alignment on the internal prioritization of those things and of that work. So the work is happening. The good news is it has been taken off the backlog and put into the dev queue, but we do need our development teams to actually connect two systems that right now aren't talking. And so we have to figure out what, essentially like what language does this one use, what language does this one use, and how does the data need to come through from our content system into our email APIs so that it can understand what it's trying to put in, and do we have all the data points? Do we have all the endpoints? Do we have all the targeting that we need? And because something so simple as alerts is actually incredibly complex when you're talking about all of the different variables of the property, the country, the language, the rate that the person has booked, maybe the tier of the guest that has booked. There are all of these, there's this whole nuanced flow that has to go into that. So I think it is actually quite complex and we're still working through it, but just the fact that we were successful in getting it bumped up so there is dev work going on we view a win.
Super good. Another piece I'm kind of curious about is kind of the data dimension, which you certainly mentioned. And so you've got a content system. It sounds like you've got a richness of data there. But I guess there's a question here. I won't presume anything here. Was it the availability of data, having the data available at the granular kind of level needed, or is it was more the challenge getting the data to flow across multiple tools and platforms?
That's a really great question, and it sort of depends on the data that we're talking about. If it's a lot of times we have the data, it does exist, right? So we do have all of those data points in the alert example. We have all those data points existing, but they're existing in different places. And so I guess my answer would be the difficulty for us is more in harnessing it and ensuring it can get over to another place. So it's the integration of the systems that have to talk to each other is typically where we get tripped up the most right now, because we have a ton of data sitting out there, but it's just right now in very disparate places, which I'm sure is also a theme that's familiar to a lot of people on this call.
Not an uncommon problem, yep. Especially with our Martech community, and we've talked about this in past sessions. So I hear two dimensions then. How do you get the data kind of coalesced or harmonized so that what would have been data islands, the data comes together, and then how do you enable and make the connection to the systems that need to act on the data and deliver actual marketing.
Yeah.
If I'm reading you right.
And when you're 101
Yeah.
years old as a company, there's a lot of like you turn corners and then all of a sudden there's another little pile of data you didn't know existed and you don't know, and it's in like a totally different system that's like off in a closet somewhere. So there's also a lot of that going on as I feel like every time we get into discovery on things, it gets a little more complicated than we initially thought that it was going to be.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's kind of shift to Brandy here and kind of hear the insights from Jason's Deli. I think once we kind of have all the storytelling out in the open, I'd like to come back and talk more about this data dimension, because I'm intrigued, and then bringing about those kind of new connections and enabling the Martech when staff resources are reduced. That's such an edgy subject. I'm dying to talk more, but let's hear Brandy's situation. And again, Brandy leads marketing for Jason's Deli, so that's a whole country full of locations, each with its own nuances. And I think we're going to hear about some pretty hard pivots that had to be brought off by Brandy and team.
Yeah, thank you.
So take it away, Brandy. Yes.
So much of what Holly was just saying, I was just nodding my head going, wow, yeah, just dead on. A lot of the challenges we faced, both being in the hospitality industry. For those of you that don't know Jason's Deli, we're not everywhere. So we're certainly not Hilton sized, but we are a 45-year-old brand. We're a family-owned business. We're privately owned. We are owned by the same family that founded us in 1976 in a little town outside of Houston called Beaumont. It's where our headquarters still is. We have 254 locations across 28 states. And we sell salads and sandwiches and pastas and soups. But the big thing about our menu really is that none of our food contains high fructose corn syrup, artificial trans fats, no MSG, no artificial flavors, colors, dyes. We serve a very, very clean product, and we very much believe in that. So just to give you kind of a quick overview of what the restaurant industry looked like, I know everyone was hit very, very hard this last year. I can tell you that the restaurant industry is, we're hanging in there. But it's been a pretty brutal year for everybody. Americans on average spend half of their food dollars outside of the home. So that's a pretty big pipeline that dried up almost instantly for us. In the first 3 months of the pandemic, the industry had lost already $120 billion in those first 3 months. We ended last year $240 billion below forecast. We lost a lot of people. When the business isn't there, you can't keep the people employed. There aren't people to serve, and there isn't enough business to support it. The restaurant industry lost about 2/3 of their workforce. It's 3 times more jobs than any other industry. It makes up about 40% of COVID-related layoffs last year. This one is something that is a really big hit to us, both personally and professionally. And it's something that we're still dealing with. It's really, really hard to get people back in the door. So something we'll continue to struggle with. 110,000 restaurants closed last year. A lot of restaurants just couldn't make it. They couldn't make those pivots. They couldn't be nimble. A lot of those that closed were open on average 16 years. So they were established concepts that couldn't make it. And a wide variety of restaurants. We also had a lot of sourcing challenges last year. The things that we needed to do our jobs, we had a really hard time because everyone was dealing with this. We had a really hard time sourcing some of those things. Obviously masks and gloves were at a premium, and all of our employees have to wear them. They continue to wear them. Sanitizer, we all were scrambling looking for that. Food, just getting food in from distributors and to serve our customers was really hard. Packaging, all sorts of things. So on top of the reduced business, we just had a lot of those kind of operational challenges. So I mean, we really had to look at making changes on all levels, because when 70% of your business goes away pretty much overnight, what are you going to do?
Yes, indeed.
Next slide for me, please. Keyword here, we've heard it already many times in this conversation. You'll keep hearing it. You got to pivot. You got to figure something out. We'll first look at some of the operational challenges that we faced. And then we'll talk a little bit more in detail about how that affected the marketing side of things. The first thing that we did when this pandemic hit was to form a task force, if you will. We had a team that came together with all of our executive leadership, our operators, and honestly, those first couple of months we met daily, even if it was just a touch base of who needs what's going on, just how we could support everyone. And also, like I said, keeping on top of all those regulations was a full-time job for someone, really staying in touch with that stuff. So in the end, we adapted because we just didn't have a choice. Our mantra through this last year was get to the other side. That was our key goal, was just to make it through whatever that looks like. We wanted to be able to have a business on the other side of this. And so we had to look at doing things differently. We're a company that more than 50% of our business comes from dine-in customers, people actually coming into the restaurant, sitting down and eating. Another 20% of that is catering customers. So that's the 70%. Those people can't dine in anymore. People aren't going to their offices. There is no catering. You have to look at your other streams, and people naturally migrated to those, but you've got to figure out ways to serve them better in those. Delivery is obviously a huge piece of that. We increased our third-party relationships over the last year. I think we're with maybe 4 or 5 providers now, where I think we started with 1 or 2. Because that's how people are ordering food these days. We also offer delivery just direct from us. We've been doing delivery since the late 90s. So we have a very well-oiled machine in terms of getting food to people. But we knew that that's how people were going to be taking food. So we had to find other ways to do that. Curbside pickup is another one. We had some places that were doing curbside pickup, but it wasn't really a formal system. It was just kind of a, call me when you get here kind of thing. So we had to really very quickly come up with how we're going to do curbside pickup. We didn't have the technology to support it in terms of, checking in, letting us know that you're here and those kinds of things. So we really had to scramble on that one. And a lot of places, I think about 80% of food establishments added that type of service over the last year. So we're actually working on a tech solution for that right now, because I think it's going to be important in the long term. We're looking at that solution where people can check in, they can let us know they're on their way, we can geofence them, we can see when they pull in the parking lot, we can go out and meet them, they don't have to wait, and really just improve that customer experience in a way that's beneficial to both of us, really. Streamlined menu, again, there were some food items we just couldn't get. Commodities were just at a premium. We had to streamline our menu for a few months and take some things off the menu we just didn't have. And also, when your workforce is 2/3 smaller, you just can't make as vast a menu as we had. So we had to streamline it just to operate properly. One thing that we did do that I think was pretty inventive, we came up with a bulk menu. We very much believe in being part of our communities. And when we saw that there was a need for groceries, basically, we stepped in and tried to fill that gap a little bit. People were going to the grocery store, you couldn't find eggs, you couldn't find milk or bread or cheese, and those are all things that we have. So the commodities that we could get in, and we own our own distribution system, so we're able to kind of pivot pretty quickly on that too. The things that we could go in, that we could get in, we were offering to customers. So people that couldn't get eggs, you could come in and buy 2 dozen eggs from us. It was very much in bulk. And so there were a lot of communications around that and how that worked. I mean, we were selling toilet paper at one point, those big round industrial rolls that you get in businesses, which, you get what you got to get when you can't find anything. We were selling those giant rolls for $5 because people just didn't have it. We came up with new menu items. We had to bundle some things. We blended some things. We put pieces together and came up with family packages because more people were spending time at home, working from home. We've really pivoted our catering business to from kind of that tray catering to a more individually boxed item or single item. So many things we had to do on the operations side. That's just a few of them. That bottom picture you can see there is some of our bulk grocery items that we were selling. And all of that really morphs into the marketing aspect of things because we've got to find ways of communicating all of these changes on top of regulations, on top of safety, on top of people. Our 4 pillars are safety, hospitality, execution, and efficiency. Safety, and in that order, before the pandemic hit, safety is always top priority for us. You never want to get anyone sick. It's just what you got to focus on if you're running a restaurant. We do have food safety specialists on staff. They were very key this year. And so safety was really where we had to start. Hospitality is really kind of where the marketing falls in. And that's just, it's talking to people, letting people know what's going on. So let's look at the marketing adaptations on the next slide. We've talked about data, and it's an interesting topic for us because we've never been a big data company. We've always really focused on hospitality and saying, ma'am and sir, and just being hospitable. It's those Southern roots that we have. And so our data, we've always known it was thin. This really shined the light on it for us. We had data on our B2B customers, our catering customers. We had a sales team that was kind of gathering that piece by piece, acquiring lists and things of that sort. We have our e-club. We have our online ordering people. We've got email addresses and things for that. But it was a really huge problem, especially when our number one seller, that top pick there, our number one seller is our salad bar, and it's a self-serve, all-you-can-eat salad bar. Obviously, when this hit, that closed down immediately, and that's our top seller. And we really realized how crippled we were in terms of data because we didn't know who those people were. We don't know any of our dine-in customers. We don't have their buying habits. We don't know who they are. We don't know how often they come in. We just don't have any way to track it. So it really showed that we had a very big hole that we needed to fill. We had emails going out. The cadence of those was stepped up. I mean, almost daily, just really communicating to people what was going on as things changed. Obviously, social media channels. Much more frequent, more visual, really trying to reassure people what we were doing to keep them safe. One of the things we did this last year that I think, a lot of things really do get accelerated, and a lot of things have to get accelerated. And I think, some good things really came out of this in that we were really forced to go down this digital menu board route because you couldn't have shared menus. In Texas, we had to have disposable menus. So one-off black and white menus that people could use, and then we had a trash can they could put them in directly. So we were able to pivot really quickly. We got those digital menu boards installed in all locations in a matter of a couple of months, got them up and running. QR codes were another way that we were able to solve that menu issue. Not having people, handle shared menus was key. So we now have QR code menus in all of our locations, inside and in some drive-throughs where we have lineups. You can pull up the menu before you get to the ordering window. Text messaging is something that we rolled out this last year as well. It's something we've been looking at, but again, accelerated it. We launched that in July. Just one more way to talk to our customers, get feedback, let them know about promotions we were having. Just another great form of communication for us. In fact, at this point, text messaging is our second biggest acquisition pipeline after Google Ads. It's done a lot of great things for us, and I'm happy that we were able to kind of speed that up a bit. And then our app, we already had the app, but we were able to kind of use that for communications, using that home screen, having some pop-ups on that and things like that. And then, coming full circle back from data was loyalty. We didn't have a loyalty program. If you ordered online, we had a small loyalty program. Only 20% of our sales are online orders. So we had a very small kind of, encouragement for people to order online. You get a 4% back that you could use on a future purchase. I've been chasing down loyalty at this company since the day I got here 7 years ago. And again, this really accelerated that because they really understood the need to know exactly who our customers are, what they're buying, how often they're coming in, so that we can communicate to them in the way they want to be communicated with. And so that's something that's in the process right now. We're working on a loyalty system. I hope to roll that out in Q3. That will, like any loyalty system, it's about data. It's about getting better handle on what your customers look like and then how you can talk to them a little bit better. So from the marketing side of things, I mean, we're a very, very tiny team. There's only 4 of us. We were able to, which I think really helps when you have to act really nimbly, and being privately owned really helped as well. But yeah, we shifted a lot. We changed our focus a lot. We're a scrappy little team, and we're excited about the way things are going right now. Business is picking back up. I know there's that pent up, just like with travel, that pent up need to, I just want to go out with my friends. I want to go have dinner somewhere, so we're very hopeful for what's coming up in the future.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of interesting posts in the chat here. It struck me early on that, the pivots that you and the team were bringing about, Brandy, were it's hard to distinguish marketing from operations, but it's the kind of pivoting in communications using data and what one might think of otherwise as marketing data tools just to keep the boats afloat, right, to stay in business. What a harsh exercise, and I want to say heroic to get through all of that and accomplish all that change.
It was daunting, to say the least, and I was actually leading our COVID response team, and so on top of everything else, having to kind of coordinate at a company-wide level, all of those things. I think that's probably why you see such a mesh between that operations and marketing. We're a very operations-focused company, and so we do a lot together. We have a great teamwork between what operations is doing and how marketing can support that.
Hey, Brandy, quick question. Is it fair to say that you have reached the other side now, as you mentioned earlier?
I feel pretty confident that we have. Yeah,
Great.
we had this team that met it was called our COVID response team. We were meeting daily for a long time. That moved to weekly as things kind of eased off in terms of, changing every day. And then that morphed into we called it a ramp up team. And how do we ramp up and get back out of this? Now that we've kind of made it through, what does that ramp up look like? And so that's morphed into something that's kind of ongoing to keep us all, communicating together. It's a process that we found during this crisis that worked really, really well for us. We were able to knock out things, left and right very, very quickly using that process. So it's something that we're going to keep around.
Are you able to bring back the staff that you
on
had to
that,
let loose? I'm sorry, Rich.
go ahead. No, it's fine.
In terms of obviously reduction in your staff, were you able to hold on to them and communicate with your? I know you're talking about communicating with your customer. How about your employees who are hardest hit that can't come to work because there's no one to serve?
Yes,
How
exactly.
did you manage your workforce, if I could ask?
A lot of them, a lot of our workforce is hourly. We did our best to kind of employ as many people as possible. We communicated with them. Some people were furloughed pending picked up business. Some people just moved on. We're very fortunate that we at Jason's Deli have something called the Jason's Deli Family Fund, and it is a employee funded program that benefits our employees in times of need. When somebody gets hit by a hurricane, if they got a family disaster and they just need a little support. And that's something that we really focused on this last year too, is giving our people, if we couldn't, give them the jobs, we tried to support them however we could until we could get them back in. And quite honestly, it's our biggest struggle right now is getting people back in the door. We're desperate for people to come back and fill that gap. And just having a really hard time doing it. The stimulus money is very appealing.
Super good insights. Let me ask a question kind of for both Holly and Brandy. I'm curious, kind of picking up on your comments around how the team needed to shift and a very lean team getting super scrappy. In what ways, and this is for both of y'all, in what ways would you say your organizations have changed, and specifically Martech? How has the Martech role, do you see permanent changes or things that have kind of inflected based on coming through this whole exercise?
Yeah, we for sure have seen some of what we needed to do in the early stages of the pandemic, because I mentioned that pit crew during your slides that really spoke to me, and the good news is that a lot of that mentality has stuck, and the agility that we had to have, which we didn't have prior because there was a ton of different processes. And so I'd say that the pendulum, while it has swung back a little bit into our more normal processes, we have been able to maintain some of that really hyper communication. So ensuring that even the channels, so like my team or the web team or the mobile app team, are pulled up and earlier into the conversations about what marketing is trying to do or what the dev team is trying to do, and ensuring that we're further upstream has stuck. And so I think that has been incredibly helpful, because a lot of times, there are some things coming in the pipeline that actually did require some technical adjustments from our side. And so it's helpful to be a little further up in those discussions and be on the front of the work stream versus just the caboose.
Oh, interesting. How about what would you say, Brandy?
Yeah, I very much I identify with that as well. And I think one big thing that happened in our organization was, this really did put a spotlight on our part of the process. Like I said, we're a very operations focused company. It's all our mission is to make every customer happy. And I think during this time, the organization probably realized a little bit more about what exactly we do and the things that we need to do what we do properly. Having some of those gaps, like a big data gap for more than half our customers, it was one of those things we always, leadership always knew it, but we're doing fine. And then through this, I think it really just highlighted the need that we've got to be better about our Martech. We've got to be better about gathering data. We've got to be better about being hyper personalized in how we talk to people. And so while it was a very tough year, I think some really great things are going to come out of it.
Yeah, very cool. One other thing, just kind of on the organizational front, yeah, both of you, I think, shared some thoughts around how marketing and Martech came together with the technology teams. Software development, platform, standing up platforms, data. The technology of managing data. Were there any kind of inflections or shifts in terms of organizationally how the kind of marketing and Martech came together with the more like tech and IT functions?
For us, there weren't any organizational shifts. There weren't any kind of staffing changes. We already have a really tight relationship with our IT team, and our marketing team actually is kind of surrounded by the IT team. So we're all kind of in the space together and talk constantly. So,
like the way that you work together, did anything shift in just the way those two functions come together, or was it just like an acceleration of what you were already doing?
Exactly. It was really just an acceleration. It was all about changing priorities and being able to change those quickly. The IT team does a lot of everything, and sometimes it's just a struggle to figure out where your place is in line. And so, yeah, it was really just accelerating how we work together.
Yeah, and I would agree. It was the same at Hilton. I don't think it functionally has changed so much as definitely tighter knit, which we did need, and more open communication about the prioritization of their queue, which was sometimes a little like kind of like a black box before COVID. Now there is much more communication between the two sides of the aisle, as it were, and collaboration. So it just says like functionally still structured the same, but definitely an accelerated relationship and helped in a lot of ways, I think.
Yeah, very cool. I would love to talk more about data because I can just I see a contrast. Holly, on your side, it sounds like there is a lot of data, but how do you harness it? I think was the word you used. And then Brandy, it sounds like you've got some data and you're able to harness some, but you wish you had more. I would just love to go deeper and kind of hear your insights on lessons learned around data and handling of data. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we have a ton of data. It was really interesting actually to hear, Brandy talk about their struggles of needing data because the restaurant industry I know a lot of times does not have that. You have more transient people in and out versus when you are booking a hotel room, when you have a loyalty program that is well established, has been around for a while, you just naturally have more data on people. I think our main struggle has been when is really around at this point data hygiene. So we have some data coming in from different places, but if we're trying to say match it on the back end for an abandoned browse campaign, then are we certain that the person that we think has been searching is actually rich and we're going to send it to the right place and it's the right property? So it's ours now. There's two things. There's access to it. So do all of the channels and can we work on those integration points so that we have access to it? But the thing that we're getting access to, are we confident that we have good data hygiene on what we're getting and what the channels are using? So those are kind of that's where we are in the life cycle of getting to a true clean single view of the customer that is then available to all channels is kind of the point where we are in our Martech journey.
By coming through the pandemic situation, has the way you think about that, the way the organization thinks about that, is it different now? Would you say?
I don't think it's different. I think the piece that became a bit more um we had a little it became a little more in focus was the property piece of all of that. So how I think before we were really focused on a lot of those digital channels, the the data that may be coming flowing through in that way. But all of a sudden, the fact that we have all of these properties that are running not all on the same system became a bit more of a focal point when you think about our roadmap for Martech, and that does have to be a really big piece of it in order for us to be effective with our data. So I think that that for us it was the influence of we have to bump the property systems and how they're connected in up a bit more in priority as well. As opposed to let's fix all the digital stuff because that's kind of easier to do, and then we'll get to property. It leveled it up.
No, good stuff. But what would you say, Brandy?
I I mean, it's kind of eerie how you could just put the word Jason's Deli in everything that Holly just said. Data hygiene. On top of not having a lot of data, the data we did have was a hot mess, to be honest. Um, and that's because very much the same thing that Holly's talking about. It's disparate systems. We've got our online ordering customers over here. We've got app customers over here. Our sales team's talking to our B2B customer over here. We've got our e-club. Those things may or may not talk to each other. You might exist in all four databases. We didn't have a single source of truth for our customer. Um, and so that was a really big struggle. But again, it really put the spotlight on it for everyone, and people really understood what marketing had been saying for a while, and they really understood the situation. And a great thing that's come out of it is this loyalty platform that we're going to work on. That's our single source of truth. Everything's going to go into that. You're going to have one record instead of six. And I'm really excited about that. So yeah, hygiene was a huge issue for us.
Yeah, I'm just looking at all the community members that are on the call today and the companies they represent, and I'm going to venture to say that pretty much every company represented here today is dealing with something like this. It sounds like you guys, you knew that there were things that needed to be worked on in terms of data harnessing, data hygiene. And is it fair to say the urgency around all of that just went up a whole bunch of notches? Am I reading you right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting, though, how coming through a crisis, organizationally, you find ways to solve things that might have taken a long time before. You find ways to solve it way faster. You get innovative. You accelerate, and then I think with some luck, you come out of that tunnel, come out of that dark period at a much higher speed. So at least with the organizations I'm most familiar with, that gain of speed and agility by coming through a crisis may actually create a benefit in the longer track.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. I would like to ask, I'm sorry, there was one more great question that came, a bunch of great questions in the post, but I saw a comment about customer experience. And, I think what we're talking about is kind of hyper intense customer experience management in a situation like this. How are your organizations, as you come out of the pandemic, does it change the way you think about customer experience, or does it think about the way around? Does it change how you think about enabling delivery of better customer experiences?
Yeah, and I saw that question in the chat. So to first directly respond to who's responsible for customer experience, we actually do have a customer experience team. However, it is that sits a little more on closer to the technology side. So if you think about like UX of things, but it's really the onus is always on all of us to be thinking about customer experience. And Hilton is very, very guest centric in their thinking, or member centric in their thinking. So we're very careful to bring it back around to, but what does the guest need from this? What does the member need from this? Um, what are those pain points? So in hospitality, it is so focused on the experience because that is the main differentiator between us and our competitors is what experience are we giving, whether that be on property within our app, the engagement on email, so in the web. So I think it's a customer experience, whether there is a team, and like I said, it's more tech UX based from a title standpoint. The onus is always on everyone. And I think that it is something that all teams bring to the lens of where their remits are.
Yeah, and from our perspective, customer experience is always very, very key to us. Like I said, after being as safe as possible, our top priority is being as hospitable, and that means, removing as many speed bumps as possible for our customers and making it really easy to do business with us. So we've always talked about customer experience, and this last year I actually formed a team that I'm leading for customer experience at our organization. It's a cross section of all departments. We all play a part in it. And like Holly was saying, there's a big tech piece to that. And a lot of the things that happened this last year with our improvement on curbside pickup, digital boards, QR menus, all of those things speak to customer experience and just making things easier. And so as we worked on those kind of individual jobs, and this ramp up team was throwing out some other things, it just became obvious that we needed an umbrella to hold it all, and really make sure that each of those individual customer experiences was feeding into a bigger, consistent customer experience.
Awesome. So let me just kind of wrap things up here. In terms of just wisdom at this point, you've come through a tough challenge, but you've survived. You've positioned the organizations for a new kind of future. What wisdom would you share with the participants here?
Brandy, you can go first.
Thanks, Holly.
It could be just like advice, or it could be just lessons learned.
Yeah, join a wine club. How about that?
I think it's just there's a big lesson in optimism for me. It was a dark year. I mean, it was a tough year. There were, we wanted to stay in business. We wanted to keep serving customers. We wanted to carry on this family legacy of the Tortoris family who founded us and we love. And so in these times when things are happening so fast and so disparate, and you're in reaction mode, it's kind of easy to let that. I mean, we all had an increased amount of stress and anxiety this last year, and I really just kept telling my team, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. We're going to get through this. We have amazing leadership. We're fiscally sound. We're privately owned. We can move really quickly. We don't have layers and layers of things that need to get done before I can do my job. I can just do my job. And so that was, I tried to get everyone to focus on the upside to that, yeah, this is going to suck for a while, but we're going to be okay. So I kind of came out of last year with a bit of optimism. And, I think the marketing team kind of wins a little bit for all of those things that I just mentioned, that our board, our leadership, our ownership group really understands what we need and has shifted some priorities to get us those things.
Very great.
Yeah, I think that was really, really great. And I would add to that this lens on your people. So, I I felt like during especially spring into summer and even into fall, part of my team is over in Glasgow that's been on a for real lockdown, like not you can't leave their houses for more than an hour. Like it's just like Brandy said, the mental strain. So I think ensuring you're putting your people first is really, really important because a well cared for team is much better than one that is burned out, right? And we're all in this together. And I think that it was tough. I'm a mom of three young kids, so there was a long period of time when they were home and had to give myself grace of like they're in the background or they're screaming at me or they're coming on camera. Like it just was chaos. And I think we have to first remember we're all human beings and be care for each other because we spend a lot of time, even if it's over video, that way. um and the other thing more functionally would be to not always I think what it showed us was some of these things that you put on the backlog, like they just wind up on the backlog, they actually are really, really critical. So I think it was an exercise in prioritization that was helpful to help us like realign on what prioritization means and getting more grounded in the why, like the impact of what we're asking for, and 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 so not always I'm not articulating this super well, but that sometimes things would just be like the alert thing, that the pipeline between our content and our email APIs that may seem small, but it's really, really critical. So I think that one thing we definitely learned as a company was we cross functionally should be prioritizing things always, and what we say has just as much weight as what the dev team is saying. And I think now we're listening to each other, and so that has made a huge difference.
Good insight. You bet.
Yeah, and kind of
Well, I bet there's
speaking.
going to be more questions from. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, speaking to that, I think another thing, hitting on what Holly was just talking about, the importance of cross-functional teams, the importance of not working in silos, um, really, really was highlighted this last year. It was very evident in our COVID response team and our ramp up team. It's all departments working together to solve all sorts of problems, and great ideas can come from anywhere, and knowing what everyone else is doing really can help you do what you need to do better.
Awesome. Well, I bet there's going to be more questions from the community here, but I think in the interest of time, let's kind of move to some of the announcements and feedback items, and then if anybody would like to stay on after that for more questions, I'll kind of open up the mics and we can talk deeper, do a little more Q&A. But let's kind of hear the messages from the team here.
Yeah, thanks everybody so much for coming today. Great questions in the chat as always, and we really appreciate your participation and feedback as well. So we'll be sending out some follow-up materials, and just want to get your feedback and hear what you have to think about this session as well as upcoming topics that you'd like to see. So yeah, we just really enjoy these sessions and getting to hear everybody's thoughts on topics like this. And speaking of that, we have a couple upcoming announcements as well. I'll kick it over to you, Kyle.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, everybody. I see some really great questions in the chat, so really hope everybody stays on and we can talk about those and get some discussion going. So again, for you guys who have been to one or a few of these, we tend to do these pretty regularly, get this ongoing discussion happening. So we're targeting May 6th for our next one, and the topic's going to be advancing ad tech, best practices for segmentation and data strategy. Again, data, huge deal. So getting a little bit deeper on that component, I think, is going to be a great discussion as well. So Vanessa's going to ping the RSVP link to the chat if you guys are interested in RSVPing for that, and we'll have more details coming out shortly there. The other thing, we had teased this in our 2020 events, but talking about, what does a deep dive look like? We have these great discussions at a strategy level, at a data level, but in terms of hands-on experience with tools, we wanted to have this be a nice supplement for anybody who's interested. So we put together some initial topics here. We're calling it the Digital Experience Bootcamp to really talk about 3 main pillars of what it takes to do digital marketing in 2021 and beyond. So going deeper on web tools, going deeper on marketing automation tools, going deeper on analytics and how those pieces go together, but actually giving you guys an opportunity to be hands-on in the systems, learning some things from our experts. So feel free to reach out directly to us if you guys are interested in that. We're currently in pilot testing for that right now to just make sure everything runs smoothly. But again, we're targeting May of this year to really go into that. So let us know if there's an interest there, but I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing you guys at our next session here. But I think we'll kick it back over for some Q&A.
Can I pick up on that real quick, Kyle? So
absolutely.
Deep dives are what we've had today is the forum, the community forum, and these will be every month or two. We'll have a forum, and that'll be ongoing. But the deep dives are smaller group sessions, a little more like a deeper run. So whereas these sessions are an hour and a half, the first of the deep dives is maybe a multi-session, hands-on kind of learning experience. The first one we've teed up, just to go a step deeper, is for folks who have been around the Martech but have not been so much hands-on, or maybe have been hands-on in certain aspects of Martech but not others. So this is a boot camp, which is a intensive experience to get hands-on and get a basic command of the tools in three deep dive sessions, 3 successive deep dive sessions. So if you're interested in that, let us know. That one, like Kyle said, is being piloted now and launches in May. We're envisioning other deep dives as well, or a second one may be a cross-platform comparison. I talk to marketing and Martech leaders all the time that are kind of wondering, geez, is the tool set we have the best fit? What other options do I have? What does a compare and contrast look like across various platforms? What are the strengths and weaknesses of each? That one is a concept that we're working on. And I think there'll be more that'll follow. So we'd love to hear everybody's feedback and thoughts on that. The deep dive, by the way, will be available to individuals who'd like to participate, but we can spin this and make the deep dive, the boot camp available to organizations as well. So organizations that are seeking to bring about a transformation and a re-equipping of their teams the boot camps can be made available for that as well. So stay tuned, but I'm sharing this because we'd love to hear more feedback. Hopefully that's a little bit of a thought starter or triggers some reactions. We'd love to hear your feedback and ideas around deep dives. Like I said, I got a couple final thoughts. First one is thank you to our experts. Thank you to the Martechify team who put this together. Great job. I know there's a ton of preparation that happens. Great job, much appreciated. And as I said before, let's kind of use the last couple of minutes here for additional Q&A. We'll kind of open up the microphones and would love to hear what other questions folks have.